Cái người đó phải cho.
From outside we can it's already recorded.
Yeah, it's recording now.
Bên kia. Ai mà tạo này
So I think we can in the waiting time we can introduce ourselves. My name is Hong and I'm service engineer. Nice to meet you, Lộc, and
I'm a service engineer too.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, and as I don't think everyone had joined when I introduced myself, and I can just repeat that my name is Jesper, and I'm working at the Mabtech AB office in Stockholm. I've been working at Mabtech since 2019, and I started out working as the product specialist for the instruments. So I've done a lot of installations and software trainings and presentations on the product. And then since June 2020, I've been working as like the head of instrument, or more the manager of the entire process. So the product life cycle, making sure that we can produce and deliver equipment to everyone. And then we have Arvin joining here as well, and he started out as the product specialist in beginning of February.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Great. So now it actually looks like the download is completed. So you can click on that one.
Okay. Open it.
Yes. And then finish.
Yeah, we just click next.
Yeah, that's good. Install.
Okay. And finish.
And then finish.
And we launch the program too.
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay. Should we connect the ASTOR to the computer now?
Yes, that would be good.
Okay.
And while connecting to the computer, I want us also to remove the old software version from this computer. So you can minimize this Teams window. You can make it small.
Okay.
So that we can see the desktop. And then you will see that there are two versions now on the desktop. One is saying it should be saying 45 or something like that. So if you click it, so you can drag 45 to the recycle bin and remove it.
So we uninstall this version, right?
Exactly. You can uninstall that version. The 145 can be uninstalled.
Okay.
But it's actually enough to just drag it to the recycle bin and then just empty it from, So, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Good. So then we have this latest software version. Yes. So what we're gonna do next? You're connecting all the cables now, right?
Yeah.
Super. And I will wait a little bit.
Is there anything we need to unlock first?
I see. Cắt ngon nha.
Okay. Connected. And now we turn on the ASTOR. Okay.
You can wait a little bit before turning on the ASTOR. You don't have to do it right away. So I just want to check a few things first. So you can close the window that you have now on the desktop on the computer. And then you can close this window down. And now you double click on the Maptic Apex icon on the desktop. And yeah, try now. You are accessing the login window. And the thing is, when you're connecting the reader to the computer, then everything will appear like this. So you will be able to access this login window right away. If you're not connecting the reader to the computer, then the computer will ask for a license activation because you are offline. So that can be good for you to be aware of when moving around the instruments in the future, that as long as you have a connection between the reader and the computer, you will bypass the sort of license activation process. But
Okay.
if you want to install it on like a computer where you're not connecting to a reader, then you would have to activate like licenses, and then you need our help basically with that process.
Okay.
But here now, we are just going to log in and then check that everything is fine. So you can go to the drop-down menu under Profile and go to Admin.
Yes.
And then log in with password ABC123.
Okay.
As you can see here, you will have both, as an admin, you have both the opportunity to open the workspace or you have the opportunity to handle users. So when we have the training on Monday, the software training, I'm going to walk you through everything that you can do, including like handling users and everything. But right now, I would like you to click on Open Workspace.
Nóng rồi.
Is the interface still white on your side?
Yes.
Okay, that's a little bit odd. Can you go and close it down in the top right corner? Yeah, so close those windows down, I think. Maybe it's due to the connection here. Okay, let's start from the beginning now.
Okay.
I think sometimes it's necessary to do like click Control Alt Delete on the keyboard to open the task manager. Control Alt Delete.
Okay.
Then just put the cursor over Apex. And then end the task.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
right?
now we
Then
open it
yeah,
again.
exactly. It could be due to that. So double click on that one on the desktop again.
Should we open the ASTOR, turn on the ASTOR?
Yeah, you can do that. You can do it already now.
Okay.
So turn on the ASTOR on the front.
Okay. Now.
And then you can log in here. And ABC 3. And then open workspace.
Okay.
Okay, now it's better. So can you, in the top right corner next to the Mubtech icon, it says ASTOR and then it says something. So what can you see here? It says ASTOR ready.
Yes. Yes.
So can you turn ASTOR off on the front of the machine again?
Okay.
So now it says Iris ASTOR off, right?
Yes.
And now we can repeat it again. You turn ASTOR on. So now ASTOR should go from off to booting. Can you see this?
Yes.
Great. And this will take around 30 seconds and then it reaches status ready. So this is something that you could do when starting up the equipment, when you're installing it, that you're like logging in, you're making sure that the equipment goes from off to booting to ready. When you're installing it, to make sure that the entire process of setting up the equipment is correct. If you are connecting the cable and you're doing some sort of mistake and a cable is not connected properly, then it will say here, no reader connected. So then you know that something is going on with all the cables. So that could always be a good way to confirm that everything has been set up properly.
Okay.
But now I think it says ASTOR ready, right?
Yes.
So then I would like you to go to Preferences in the top menu. And Reader. And here we can find the identity of the ASTOR, and it's saying ASTOR 61, right?
Yes.
And then it's also saying some MD values, so some machine default values. So can you read out the value for MSIP white for me, where it's like a light gray text?
Right text.
It say 295.
295.
Yes.
And the next value?
325.
335.
325.
25. Yeah.
Yes.
And the next one?
The next one is 325 too.
325.
Yes.
And the next one?
295.
And the last one?
325.
Great. So what we can see here is the machine default exposure times. So it's basically the different camera exposure times used when reading the different plate formats. And these exposure times have been like quality controlled in our in-house QC process. So as an admin, you could override these values and you can write something else. But that is not something we recommend, since it's like the quality controlled values of the product, ensuring that the performance is optimized, sort of. So it's that's why we always check it upon installation, because we want to see that nothing happened and it wasn't overridden in any way. So we want to make sure that the correct exposure times are used for the equipment. So from here, you can click on OK. You don't have to do anything here. You can just go down and click on OK. And now we're going to eject the plate holder from the machine. So in the top menu, you have a button called eject.
Okay.
And when the plate holder comes out, there was like a plastic string attached, I think, to secure the plate holder. And maybe it has been removed, but store that little string for later on, because you might need it if you want to move this instrument between several sites, if that is the case.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's good to attach it for shipments and stuff like that, since it's securing the plate loader and plate hatch.
Okay.
But now we're going to read the installation plate that was provided to you. So do you have that installation plate?
Please wait for 2 minutes.
Do you mean this one?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So you can unpack that one.
Okay.
Take it out. And then in order to read the plate, you need to remove the plate lid, of course. And then in order to insert the plate, you need to pull down the metal plate hatch that you can see on the machine, on the plate loader. You pull it like down.
So should we remove the green wire?
Exactly. You need to remove the wire, unwind the wire first.
Okay.
And then when it's been removed, then it's like a metal hatch that you pull down.
Yes.
Okay.
And then you're inserting the plate, and it's important that the top left corner of the plate is going into the top left corner of the plate holder. So the top left corner of the plate is A1.
Yes. Okay.
And that corner is going into the top left plate holder.
Hai cửa luôn rồi đó.
Yes. So that then you can like push it into the plate holder, and you will feel when it's being inserted properly.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So when it has been inserted, you are just pulling up that plate hatch again to secure the plate.
Okay.
Yes. And from here, we can go back to the software.
Okay.
So the computer and the software. And you can actually click now on read. Right? No, exactly. We haven't selected the plate type. First, you need to select MSIP clear as the essay principal option. So it's going to say LSpot MSIP clear. The second one. So you see all those 5 options, and the second one is saying LSpot MSIP clear.
Yeah.
The second one. Double click on that one. Great. So now we're in the plate view. So from here, you can actually click on read right away, because the instrument knows how that it needs to insert the plate and to read it. You also have the option to click on insert. But if you go now to the top menu and you click on read.
So should we insert the plate into the machine first?
You can click on that button just to see. So click on insert, but it's completely fine to click on read right away, because the machine understands that it should both insert and read. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
And so now we are just watching. Okay. So everything looks good. This is like the plate holder is moving under the camera, and the camera is taking images of the wells. And so this is the sort of speed that you can expect. It takes around 2 minutes to read the entire LSpot plate. So we are just gonna wait for the plate to be read right now. And I know there's a lot of like interesting software functions here And we are going to have a closer look at those on Monday. So Monday is going to be dedicated to like the software training, while today is a little bit more installation training for you, so you feel comfortable doing all that work.
Okay. Okay.
Great, so now the readout of the plate is done. So then we need to save this plate. So then you can click on save in the top menu.
Okay.
And then I would suggest that you save this plate on the desktop. And then you can call it by the name on the plate lid. So on the plate lid, you had like a reference number, and I think it should be MSI P Clear Ref 61 that you see on the plate lid when looking at that.
Okay.
You can also add today's date. So today is March 18.
Okay.
Great. And now you can click on save. Perfect. And now we will just minimize this Apex window so that we can see the desktop. If you right click, you see the plate data folder here on the desktop. If you right click on that one, do you have like a compressing program? I don't think so, right? No. Yeah, maybe that one. Try that one. See it.
Tại vì này gọi cho anh xuống đây cách ly hả? Vậy luôn. Một em sắp dán hả?
Dán giật nhau.
Này sẽ bắt đầu chết luôn.
Okay.
So now you can go to the web browser, so Google Chrome. And then open a new tab. And then I want you to write mabtech.com. /club. Sorry. /club. /club.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Club.
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 Yeah. Okay.
Yes, and then enter. Go to that website.
Okay.
Great. And now we're gonna have you logged in here. So you can enter the username BCE. And then I'm gonna send you the password in the Teams chat. It's not the easiest password. That's why I'm gonna send it in the chat.
Okay.
So you're gonna get it in the Teams chat.
Okay.
Great. So this is our Reader Club where we can share files and upload information for you and so on. So from here, I would like you to go to Upload Files in the menu. It's the last option.
Okay.
And then choose file. And here you will then select the zipped version or the compressed one. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you click on upload file. Yes. So what is happening now is that you're transferring this IQOQ readout to Mabtech, and Arbin will, after this meeting, take a look at the data and compare the data that we had in Sweden of the same plate and the one that you have in Vietnam, just to perform like a performance qualification, making sure that everything is okay. And once that is completed, then you will be provided with an IQOQ report. Okay. So this is what you would do also when going to the customer. So then you will be reading the plate on the machine before you pack it for shipment, and then you read the plate again when the equipment is delivered. So you read it at your site and at the customer site. And then you're sharing all the data with us in the Reader Club.
Cái bắt quạt nó cũng vậy. Bắt quạt vô trong bớt á.
Cái chất cái gì này có một cái file vừa học.
Kêu cho họ gửi file về dòng qua.
Nói chung là cái file này gửi lên đây rồi có gì khi tới khách hàng lấy cho so sánh không?
Không, tới khách hàng mình sẽ làm lại lần nữa gửi bên kia.
Thì so với lại cái file biết là lúc mà làm khách hàng xong mình so với file
xong cái mình gửi lại lần nữa
không nó đâu có rảnh.
Gửi file này để bên đó so sánh lại coi là cái máy ổn chưa rồi.
Vậy là xong lại kêu
Rồi mình mất xong lại kêu có kêu rồi ok này cái này là ok này cũng là đọc đó.
Okay.
to hàng sàn cũng xịn. Những cái này về chơi game rồi.
Tranh thủ nó ok cái này phải lên khay.
Just
Yeah.
yes. What about this item? It go along with the plate. What it is used
Exactly. So during the software training, we will talk about this a little bit, but that plate adapter is used for a plate type called MIPS W10 adapters. MIPS W10 plates, sorry. So the plate that you receive now was an MSIP clear plate, and that plate type doesn't require an adapter. But there is a specific plate format that is called MIPS W10 white and clear, and those are the two last options that you see when looking at that SA principal interface. And those plate types require an adapter. So that is the adapter for those kind of plates. So you will always provide the customer with that adapter in case they need to read the plates of that plate format.
Yeah, okay, I understand.
So what I show now, basically, connecting all the cables, logging into the software, opening the workspace, checking that the instrument goes from off to booting to ready, and then going into preferences, checking the machine default exposure times, checking that those are okay, and then reading the installation plate, saving the installation plate, and uploading it to the Reader Club. That is basically the entire installation process. So that is everything that is required really for the installation. So you will have this recording so that you can go back and watch all the steps that we did. And that is the kind of information that we will need from you. And then we will, in the beginning, we will help you out with the data analysis. So that's why we're using the Reader Club. But long term, the ambition is that we are going to transfer that data analysis step to you as well. But I think in the beginning now it's good that we are collaborating so that we also take a look at the data and making sure that everything is fine.
Okay.
But in the future there will be, we will have, today I will go through an installation training so that you understand the process or a presentation. And we will also in the future schedule like a service training so that you get trained on what to think about when analyzing different things in the installation process and in the service process.
Okay.
Nãy giờ chưa
Không, ý là sau này chứ đâu phải hôm nay đâu, đúng không?
đi sau này làm đúng rồi, sau cái này còn này tùm lum cái này. Có tin nhắn gì?
Okay, then I'm just going to double check that the file has been uploaded to the Reader Club.
Yes.
And yeah, it was uploaded successfully. So Arbin is going to take a look at that and do the data analysis and everything. And when we have done it, then you're going to get information from us that, yeah, everything passed, everything is okay. So you know, but this is sort of the process that you're doing. Then the next time you're moving the instrument, you need to read it one time on the instrument before you ship, and then you read it again when it's been placed at the customer site.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So now we are actually done with this part. So you can close the window down.
Okay. Minimize.
And now for the next step, my plan is to give you a brief presentation about the IQOQ or the installation process, and also followed by a little bit of a product introduction. So for now, you can just like sit down and I will share my screen and then I will give you some presentations. I think it's going to take around 1 hour, so we don't need 3 hours today. I said to soon that I think 2 hours is going to be enough for today. And then we will continue on Monday morning. And on Monday morning, we can focus entirely on the software.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now you're done with everything here. So you can just close everything on the ASTOR computer. So as long as you can see me and listen to my presentation, that is fine.
Okay. Okay.
Hello, Jasper. Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Yes. Should we do it the installation again? Compress the file, upload the file to the club at the customer side.
Exactly. So every
Okay.
time every time you're moving the instrument, you're gonna take this plate that you have received from us, and before packing it, you read it again, and you save it to the desktop or to the computer so that you have that readout. And then you move the instrument to the customer site, and at the customer site you're reading the plate again and you're saving the plate readout, and then you're uploading all that information to the reader club all the time. So it could be good. Now we didn't say in the name, we didn't say anything about the location, but it could be good, like before if you're reading it before you ship it to the customer site, then you can read it and save it with the name of the plate and at BCE Vietnam. And then you ship the instrument, you bring the plate, you read it, and then you save it with the date and at the name of the customer site, so that we know all the time where the different plates are read. Yeah.
Yes, and after that we need your confirmation, right?
Exactly. So in the beginning now, since you are not really used to you're not really used to the data that we get from the plate, and also maybe not the images and analyzing that, then I will give you a presentation now about things that I think you should look out for right now. But it's a little bit early to do the entire data analysis. So in the beginning now we will have like an overlap where we will help you with like the finalizing the IQOQ protocol, but long term we're going to have training sessions and make it possible for you to be 100% independent.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So with that said, I'm just going to open up a presentation over here. So just give me a few seconds. Great. And then I'm going to share my screen now as well. That's slideshow. So can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yes, so this presentation is a little bit more general information. Like now we dived directly into doing all the IQOQ steps and the installation steps, but this is more a presentation to really show you what it all means and why we are doing this installation qualification and operational qualification. So I'm just gonna walk you through a little bit what the IQOQ is and the setup for our IQOQs for Mabtech ASTOR, but it could also be that you in the future buy Mabtech Iris, and then it's good for you to also be a little bit aware of the differences between Mabtech ASTOR and a Mabtech Iris installation. And then I'm going to explain a little bit what kind of data analysis we are performing here at Mabtech. So now when you're transferring the information to us via the Reader Club, then we will open up that plate here in Sweden. We will do different CV comparisons tests. So I'm going to introduce you to that as well. And then some examples where IQOQ failed and we had to follow up with additional work. It's very rare that IQOQ fails. I have never seen that an ASTOR IQOQ have failed actually, but we have maybe 2 times there been some problems with the Iris IQOQ. So I'm just going to give you examples on that, so you know a little bit what you can look out for when performing the installations and what you can be observant about when you're analyzing the plate and looking at the plate. So IQOQ stands for Installation Qualification and Operational Qualification. And in simple words, it basically means that we want to ensure that your equipment has been delivered to the proper address, and so that we know where it's located and who received it basically, and that it's installed, that it's configured properly. So installed is of course like setting up all the different cables, and then the configuration is basically a little bit what we looked at, making sure that you get correct messages from the software saying that the machine is off or booting and ready and so on. But then we also want to do a performance qualifications check or an operational qualification, where we ensure that the reader is performing the same way in Vietnam as it was doing in Sweden before it was shipped to you. Because as you know, transporting goods is always a risk. So you want to have some sort of confirmation, making sure that the performance is the same when it's delivered to your customer. So then we have the IQOQ protocol, and we can send you the sort of the structure of the protocol and how that protocol looks like. But in short, it's basically a first section where you will help us fill out the company name, the address where it's being placed, the identity of the reader. So right now it's ASTOR 61 for this reader. And if you have any customer participants, that could also be good to include in case we need to contact the end user at some point to discuss something. And then here we have Mobtech representative. Here we can also add you as representatives for your company. And then the date of install, the signature of the person installing the equipment, and contact information, email address. Just to make sure that we know where the readers are placed, and the identity of the reader, who we should contact if we sort of need more information, and who the customer should contact, and so on. And then there's like a confirmation or like a checklist. So we want to ensure, of course, that when you're unpacking everything, this is an example for Iris, but the principle is similar for ASTOR. So we want to ensure that you receive your reader, of course, the USB cable that you use to connect ASTOR to the computer. With Iris, there's going to be an extra cord, so there's going to be 2 cords going between the reader and the computer. So in this case, we also have an Ethernet cable. And then we have spare fuses that are always being delivered that you got right now. I think I've never experienced that we have replaced fuses, but it's good to have as a backup in case. You have operating instructions that was received or delivered to you in a booklet format. So that is something that the customer should have next to the reader as well. And then we have this graphical illustration in the installation protocol, and it's basically showing how all the connections should go, so that you know how the power cables should connect to the readers and computers and screens and so on. And also then the most important connections, maybe the cables going between the instrument and the computer. And those cables are of course essential for the software to work the way it should. The reason why we also have like an Ethernet cable for Iris is because the camera in Iris is dependent on an Ethernet connection. So for ASTOR, it's enough with the USB connection, but for Iris, we also need to add an Ethernet cable. So often if you get error messages from Apex when trying to read plates, like the one you got yesterday, but that was due to a different reason really. But if you get a similar message in the future that ASTOR was not able to read, etc., when you're trying to read plates, it's often due to the fact that those cables here have not been connected properly between the instrument and the computer. So then it's always good to go back to the cables, like unplug them, replug them, and so on, restart the software, start from the beginning, and ensuring that everything is okay, so that you're trying again to read the plate and so on, because it does often has to do with like a glitch in the connections. Something else then that we include is to report the Maptec Apex software version. So today I know it's build 56 because that was the one that we installed now, first thing, on your desktop. And then, as we spoke about, we had one step where we logged into Maptec Apex, we opened the workspace, we turned on the reader, and we saw it going from off to booting to ready. For Iris, there's also a step where you can actually hear some noises from the machine. This is not really the case for ASTOR. ASTOR is a lot more silent, but for Iris, you can sometimes hear that something is moving around inside the machine and so on. So then there's like an extra step here. And then, of course, we need to ensure that the plate holder can come out and go back in again. So we basically did that now when you ejected the plate holder, you removed the plastic wire, you inserted the plate, and you inserted the plate loader again, so that we could see that that process works good as well. And then I asked you to go to Preferences and Reader and report to me the machine ID and also all the machine default exposure times. So this is an example for Maptec Iris. So then you can see that there are a lot more filter options, of course, because you are reading also the fluorospot mode with Maptec Iris. But for Astor, it's these 5 different plate formats basically, and you need to report the values, the MD values that you have there. And it's a confirmation to ensure that the machine settings are the same when you're installing it at the customer site as it was when we validated everything in Sweden. So it's matching our quality controlled data basically. And the last step in the IQOQ process is what we're going to do now. So you transferred the data to us, and what Arbin is going to take a look at is to see, like, open up the plate, look at the images, ensuring that it looks good from a visual point of view. But we're also using a specific program to do head-to-head comparisons between data. And this includes spot forming units, it includes RSV, sensor data, and so on. And based on that, we're passing the protocol if all the data matches. So we are doing like a comparison between the data in Sweden and the data that you have in Vietnam, and etc. So hence why it's important to read that plate that you received, and every time it's time to move the instrument, you're also collecting data. So we have as many data points as possible to do head-to-head comparisons between. So that is what you're doing. And as I mentioned right now, I think it's since everything is so new to you, we're going to help you out in the beginning, but long term is going to be the goal that you are going to be independent in that data analysis process as well. But we're going to start by assisting you, and then after this we will also book like service introduction meetings so that you will get introduced to the service and so on. And then with time, we're going to sort of transfer that data analysis to you. But now I think it's good that we are collaborating and that Maptec is supporting you a little bit with that process. So the things that we want to confirm is mainly these 3 things when we're performing the performance qualification or this part of the IQOQ. So we want to make sure that the camera focus is the same before and after shipment due to the customer site. And the reason why we're doing this is there could be something, happening to the instrument during the transport, something that we are not aware about. So a hard knock or a push to the instrument, and worst case scenario is, and as I mentioned, this has like never happened for ASTOR before, but worst case scenario, there is like a camera misplacement, and then we want to capture that with our IQOQ process and make sure that we are finding that issue before the customer starts using the device. So that's what we're doing in this test. We're also checking the LED output. So in ASTOR, there's a white ring light, and that light source that is illuminating the wells when you're reading. So if something happens to the white ring light, then we want to know that as well. So that is something that we're checking. And then, of course, that the raw spot algorithm is working properly so that the spots are being counted. And as mentioned, like I'm not worried about this. I mean, it's a standard procedure to make sure, it's a precaution to make sure everything is okay. But I think like Mabtech has dispatched more than 150 readers, and we have had maybe problems with 2 to 3 installations of those 150. So the failure rate is like super low, but it's a routine that we need to follow just to ensure, of course, that the customer is getting the products of good quality that is performing the way they should. So what we're doing then in the IQOQ data analysis is that we are using different kind of plates, or it's basically that for ASTOR we're using a standard ELISpot plate that you have been provided with, and for IRIS we're using also an ELISpot plate, but in addition to that we are providing you with a 4-color fluorospot plate for the installations. For IRIS, the installation is a slightly more complex because we often need to do the installations a little bit quicker. I recommend that if we dispatch an instrument, a Mabtech IRIS instrument from Sweden, then you should have the ambition to have it installed at the customer site within a month from the shipment date. And the reason for that is because fluorophores are exposed to natural decay. So they will go down in light intensity. And for our CV tests and for our like IQOQ process, for it to work, we need to make sure that the plate is as stable as possible. So after a month, it's difficult to use a plate that you shipped along with the reader in the first place. So this is why we have that recommendation, but of course we are also able to produce these type of plates. So when they are getting old, then we will provide you with new IQOQ plates and so on. So you don't have to worry about that. But when we are shipping an instrument, an IRIS instrument to you, it's being delivered with the fluorospot plate, then we would like you to perform the installation within a month, because that will facilitate our IQOQ data analysis. Then we have another type of plate. I'm not going to talk a lot about this one today, but it's basically a plate with more stable fluorescent substrates. So that can be used like a backup test that we can perform as well in scenarios where we can't really use this fluorospot plate due to decay of the fluorophores and so on. So for ASTOR, we are using like the SFU sort of CV difference between Sweden and in this case Vietnam, and we're comparing the data, and a 5% difference, below a 5% difference is significant. So then we are passing this installation test. At the same time, we're also looking at other values, but this is sort of the requirement for the IQOQ to pass. And for IRIS, it's the same thing, but then of course needs to pass not only the ELISpot mode, it needs to pass all the different fluorospot modes. So then it's a lot more paperwork, it's a lot more tests that you need to perform. And if an IQOQ test fails, it can be due to two possible explanations. So as I mentioned, these plates that we are providing, they have like a natural decay with time. So ELISpot spots will fade over time, and fluorospot spots will be exposed to decay over time. Or of course, there could be that other scenario that when something in the IQOQ fails, it could be due to something malfunctioning in the instrument. Like I said, it's very rare, but it's always good to be sort of aware that that could be the case. So if we look at explanation one, as I mentioned that with time, ELISpot plates will suffer from spot fading, and with time, fluorospot plates will suffer from fluorophore decay. And if we want to do this IQOQ data analysis where we want to perform CV tests and we want it to be under 5%, then it's important that we only use like one ELISpot IQOQ plate for a few months. I would say that the plate that you received now with ASTOR, you can actually use it for a long time, for more than a year, I would say, as long as you are reading it every time that you're moving the instrument. So then it's important that like, okay, you're reading it before you're moving the instrument. You're reading it when the instrument reaches the customer site. You're reading it again when you're taking it back to your offices. You're reading it again when you're delivering it to a new site and so on, because then we have a lot of data points. So then it doesn't matter really that the plate is decaying, because then we can take that into consideration when we have all our data points. The similar thing goes for fluorospot plates, that these plates decay a little bit faster, so they can be used up to around 1 month. And then after that, they often, like the light intensity from the fluorophores goes down a lot. So when it has gone like 1.5, 2 months, then it's time to discard that fluorospot plate. And then we would have to provide you with new IQOQ plates if needed. So this is just an example to give you an idea about cases where we have seen like more of a decay profile. So here nothing was wrong with the instrument, but we had a decay of the fluorophores used in the blue filter and in the green filter. And then you can often see that like several of the filters are passing like this. So this indicates that nothing is really wrong with the machine, but then you have some of the tests failing, and it's because those fluorophores have become a little bit unstable, and then the test didn't pass. So then, of course, it's important that in parallel with our CV comparison tests, so our data analysis test, then we always need to perform visual analysis to see the difference if this is a case where something is happening with the machine, or if it's due to something else, due to the plate and so on. But this is a typical data output where it looks more like something is going on with the plate rather than the machine. So in like, we shouldn't rely 100% only on the CV comparisons and the data. So what I'm asking for you as well is to, visually examine the well images. So now when you have received the ASTOR 61, and you see all those images that we collected, and when we read the plate, then you get the sense of how the focus should look like. How does the images look like, and how is the focus? So take a look at the plate that you save now in Maptech Apex. I'm going to show you on Monday how you can open up that plate again so that we can take a look at the images. And that is sort of that image profile is what you can expect when it comes to focus and sort of how the well is placed inside the image and so on. So that is the way it should look. So if you ship it to a destination and it reaches the customer site and all of a sudden the images are not looking the same, the focus is blurry, the well is not placed correctly in the image, then you should there should be like a warning signal to you that something is going on here and I need to contact Maptech AB for support and have them involved and so on. So it's always good to have that in mind, to like examine the focus when you're transporting the instrument, examine if the wells are located correctly inside the image, and look at like the light signal from the well. Is it less bright than it usually is, or is it darker, is it brighter, or did something happen here? So that could be something that is always good to add on to sort of the data analysis, that you're also looking at the images and analyzing. And then of course for Iris we always have the opportunity to send like additional materials, so like backup tests and different kind of calibration test plates to ensure that everything is the way it should be. Yeah, so this is just like a brief explanation about that calibration plate, that backup tests, and then we're looking a little bit more at sensor data using that one. So then we can really say that something is not, like we can say if something is wrong with the plate and if something is wrong with the reader. So it's like a good addition to this IQOQ test if needed. But as mentioned, it's very rare that we are shipping this backup test plate as well, because our ELISpot and fluorospot plates that we are providing with you during the IQOQ, they are relatively stable and they work in the installation process. So I'm not going to go through all the details on right now on how to read this extra calibration plate. We will take that when we have the service training, because this calibration plate is included in the service of Iris equipment. But you don't really need to worry about it right now because you have only bought an ASTOR. So this step is redundant for ASTOR. And if the failing IQOQ test is not due to something being wrong with the plate that has been provided, it could also, I mean, you should always be open to sort of the opportunity of something being wrong with the reader and that you need to contact us and we need to have a dialogue about that. So I'm just going to give you two examples when IQOQ tests didn't pass and why they didn't pass. And in one of the cases, we had a tough transport where the camera used in Maptech Iris was knocked out of position. So then I'm going to show you a little bit how that looked like. And then we had an issue with a filter cube that was slightly misplaced. And after these events, of course, we have done a lot of like internal work to ensure that it's not happening again. But it's good for you to be aware of like, okay, how does the image look like if a camera has been knocked out of position, for instance, so that you know when you should sort of, you can analyze when something has happened to the reader and when something is wrong with the reader rather than the plate and etc. So this example showed an installation where a camera was knocked out of position during the transport. So this is the image that we could see at Maptech AB when collecting the data before shipment. And this is the image that we could see when collecting images at the customer site or at the distributor site in this case. So then you can see it's like super blurry, it's out of focus. And in this case, I also had to recalibrate the table because the well was not located inside the image. It was located somewhere over here. So then, of course, if you get that sort of output, then it should be like a red flag saying that something is wrong here. I need to communicate with MubTech. We need to figure this out. So here we could also see in the CV tests, of course, when comparing the data, that all the filters were a lot above 5%. Maybe all of them were about 20% in CV difference when comparing this data to that data. So then, of course, it was very obvious for us that something was going on here. So what we did in this case is that we worked together with the distributor. We did some quick service work and we restored the function of the instrument completely. So it was possible to fix quite fast. But this is a good way to capture when service work is required. Another thing that was maybe slightly more difficult to detect in the beginning was that we collected data from Sweden, and then we read the same plate in this customer country, and then you can see that this image here, it became like darker, and the spots became a lot more fuzzier in a very short time frame. So it's not weird that spots are getting fuzzier, but they are often getting fuzzier after maybe 1 or 2 months. But here it was just like a week between the date that we read the plate in Sweden and the date that we read it in the customer country. So then we really could, react and say that this is not the way a plate or spots should look like after only 1 week. So we could also see a big difference here in the collected spot numbers in this fluorospot filter and in all the other filters as well. So that was also an indication that something is going on here. And then we hypothesized that the filter cube that is in iris and that is connected to the light path, we hypothesized that the light was not passing through that filter cube accurately. So we started to suspect that something was wrong with that filter cube position. And then we asked the distributor to go into that filter cube and knock it into a better position. And when we did that, we completely restored the function of the instrument, and the CV went down to 1%. So this is the type of things that I wanted to emphasize, that when we're doing IQOQ, we're doing like a visual examination and analyzing images. We are also looking at data differences like this. And if something is not the way that we can expect, then we need to do some sort of service related work, or we need to act in some way, and then we will work together with you to fix the issues. As mentioned, like iris is a more complex machine since you're working with fluorospot modes as well. So the risk of iris machines that you would have service related work required is a little bit higher with iris compared to ASTOR. As mentioned, I think I never have experienced that we have had to do like urgent ASTOR service work due to hardware issues in any way. So the risk is slightly higher for iris, but when we are communicating with customers and distributors, then they are often saying that our machine is extremely robust. We have a distributor in Asia that is traveling around with the demo equipment on a weekly basis, and they have never needed to do any sort of service related work in like 1.5 years, something like that. So they are very positive about that it's robust, but it's good to be aware of that you need to analyze and you need to have sort of a quality-minded approach when approving IQOQs. So yeah, if you are hesitant about the performance of your reader, when in the beginning now we're going to help you with that process, but in the future you're going to take it over from us, and then it's important that you just communicate with us if you need any type of support or assistance and you have follow-up questions, and just never hesitate to send an email to me or Arbin. You will meet Leonard later on. He is working as the service manager at Mabtech, and all of us are very used to looking at this sort of issues. So just send us an email and we will assist you as well, so that you don't feel that Mabtech is here for you as well and wants to support you with tech support and with service. So that was it for this presentation. So do you have any questions right now or something that you want me to clarify?
Okay, so thank you for your presentation.
Great.
Yeah.
So if you later on have any follow-up questions, something you want to discuss, then just let me know. Send me an email and we can talk about it. So before we are finishing off this session today, I also wanted to take 30 minutes just to talk about the product itself and what the product does. So have you been introduced a little bit to Mabtech ASTOR and how the machine works? Do you know how it works?
Just a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yes. So then we can just take 30 minutes to so that I can give you a product presentation. I can also involve a little bit about Mabtech Iris here, so that you also understand a little bit how Iris works. We will probably have to, when you buy an Iris, we would have to go back and talk more about Mabtech Iris at that point. But I can just briefly introduce you to sort of both equipments and the differences and how it works. So we can just take a few minutes, like leg stretch, if you need to go and drink some water or
Yes,
something.
sure.
So let's take 5 minutes and
Okay.
then come back here in around 5 minutes. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Then I hope everyone is back, or are we waiting for someone?
Yeah, you can continue.
Okay, great. Super. I always think it's good to have a short break and then refresh your brains so that we can talk about more stuff.
Okay.
So, as mentioned, I want to give you just a brief product presentation today, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what you have invested in. Like, okay, what is the Mabtech Astor Reader and Mabtech Iris Reader? What is it used for? And also, what is the unique selling points of the equipment? So when you are communicating with customers, then you know a little bit why Astor and Iris are different compared to competitors and what we are doing differently. So then that will allow you to have a little bit more of a communication with the customer about the product. And then, of course, on Monday, we will continue with software training so that you learn all the different software features and so on. So I'm going to share my screen again and show you a slightly different presentation. And just feel free to ask me any questions as we go if you want things to be clarified. So I just want to check with you. Can you see my screen right now?
Yes. We can
Perfect.
see.
Great. So these are our instruments. So you have now bought an Mabtech Astor unit, but this product was actually launched in 2020 after Mabtech Iris. So Mabtech started by developing the ELISpot and FluoroSpot device, and then 2 years later we launched the ELISpot only device. So these two instruments are basically the same product in many ways. It's based on the same hardware principle. You're using the exact same software. So you can just plug in an Iris to your computer and then the same software will work, and other options of running essays will appear and things like that. So it's a lot the same thing. The only difference is that, of course, Astor is maybe directed towards a customer base that is only interested in reading ELISpot plates, because then the product is a little bit more affordable, and then they can focus on like the ELISpot mode. While Iris is maybe something that you would sell to someone that it has been doing a lot of ELISpot for many years, and now they are interested in moving on to the FluoroSpot platform, or maybe they are already FluoroSpot users and want to upgrade from a competitive reader system to our Mabtech Iris unit. So that's sort of the differences. Mabtech Astor is a little bit more simpler. So what we are doing here at Mabtech is that we are providing customers with plates and reagents, so kits. So you can buy like a package from us where you will get these ELISpot or FluoroSpot plates, and you get the different reagents needed in order to perform the experiment. So the scientists or the researchers, they want to buy these plates where you have the 96 wells. And at the bottom of these wells, you have something called like a functional membrane. So this is the membrane that we see over here. That is the membrane at the bottom. And then the researcher will take these reagents and they will build up like a sandwich in their experiment. So Mabtech we are providing all the reagents except this thing called the analyte. So the analyte is secreted or produced by the cells that the scientists are adding into the wells. So they are first using our reagents to on this capture antibody at the bottom of the well. So it's provided here. And then they are adding on their cells. The cells are secreting these analytes, so cytokines mainly, onto the capture antibodies. And then they have more reagents being delivered by Mabtech, which will allow them to build up like a detection system here with a detection antibody and then a conjugation to a streptavidin enzyme, which will make it possible when you add like a substrate to convert into a product. And so the final results that you are looking at is black spots against a white membrane. And with this method, it's not like ELISA. In ELISA, you're interested in looking at the color shift and a change in absorbance or in that like color shift. And based on that, you're setting like a concentration in your sample. But this is like a qualitative method where you're interested in counting the numbers of spots that are generated upon cell secretion of this cytokine. So each spot here means that you have a cell that was sitting there secreting that analyte or cytokine. And then you're basically comparing the spot numbers between different wells where you're doing different things. And the difference between them, so this is the thing that you have in ASTOR. Then you can perform ELISpot reactions in ASTOR and you can read ELISpot plates. In Mabtech Iris, you also have the opportunity to read fluorospot plates. It's one plate format, but in that plate, you can use up to 4 different fluorophores to detect several analytes, so several cytokines. And that will enable you to also start analyzing different subpopulations. So then you can imagine that in the well, you could have like a cell sitting at one location and it's producing both this analyte here, which could be, for instance, interferon gamma, and then another analyte here, which could be granzyme B. And then the location sort of overlaps between the yellow and the green color. And then you get the color combination or like an overlay. And that information is telling you that you had a cell sitting there secreting both of these analytes. But then next to it, you could have a cell in the well that is only secreting the green analyte, if so to say. So then you can start comparing within a well different cells that secreted different things. This is what we call multiplexing. So if we have a closer look at that, what is really good in the future for scientists to move on from maybe the ELISpot platform to the fluorospot platform is that they get more information out from one single well. So then they can get information about up to 4 different cytokines. And in this way, it allows this polyfunctional cell study so that you can have your cells, they are secreting different things. And as I explained, you will have a variety between cells that only secreted one thing, and you can compare that population to cells that secreted 2 things like that. So it's a more complex analysis that gives you a little bit more information about what's going on inside the well. But most customers are very satisfied with the ELISpot mode because they're only interested in looking, for instance, at only interferon gamma, the most commonly detected cytokine. So Mabtech ASTOR is super good for that purpose. But then understand a little bit the difference between sort of the experimental level between ELISpot and fluorospot. And this is the difference when it comes to the visual output. If we look at an ELISpot well, then here it's an example where we're detecting the cytokine called interferon gamma. And then you have a lot of black spots here, and these are visual to the naked eye. You can see them when you're looking in the plate. So each spot here is representing a cell that was sitting in that location and secreting the cytokine. And then, of course, you can imagine that maybe you're doing one sort of stimulation condition inside this well. So when I talk about stimulation condition, it could be that maybe in one well, you're just adding cells and you're not triggering the cells in any way. They are unstimulated. And then that will be your background. And in that background, only maybe 10 spots appear because there's not a high frequency of cytokine production because the cells are not triggered in any way. But then in the well next to it, you can do something differently. You can add a stimulation, like a positive control. So a common positive control is to add anti-CD3 in the media. And then that is like activating the cells so that they are secreting more. So then you will have a profile looking more like this because the cells reacted. And then the researchers will also, of course, have their own stimulation conditions. So they will maybe, if you think about COVID-19 research, they will take something that is a part of the COVID-19 virus or like footprint and then add it into the well and then let the cells react to that stimulation. And if you have an individual that has been infected with COVID-19, then these cells that you have added from that person, they are going to be activated because they were activated in the person's immune system. So then that is going to be like a confirmation if you have a lot of spots being generated upon that stimulation that you actually have an individual here that has been infected to COVID-19 and so on. So this is a way of looking at the immune cells and their memory and what they have been exposed to. It can also be used for like vaccine research to evaluate potential vaccine candidates that are triggering the immune cells so that they build up defense and so on. So that is what we're looking here, and then the method is like comparing spot numbers. So this is the ELISpot principle, and this is the fluorospot principle, and then you can see that we can detect up to 4 different analytes. In this case, it's a monocyte panel where we're detecting IL-6 in blue, IL-1 beta in green, GM-CSF in yellow, and TNF-alpha in red. So if you look in the image, you can see those pure colors in some locations, but you can also see some purple colors and some white colors and so on. And that is indicating that you have more than one cytokine being detected at that location. So on Monday, we're going to see a little bit how this looks like in the software and what kind of data is presented in the data table based on a profile like this and a profile like this. So if we talk a little bit more about the unique selling points when it comes to Mabtec ASTOR and Mabtec Iris, so basically what makes these products different in comparison to competitors. Something that led to the development of Mabtec Iris is the development of what we call the raw spot technology. And that is basically that we could, before Mabtec was using Mabtec Iris, we were using other competitive systems in our in-house processes and other types of machines. And then we could often see that we zoomed in on the spot counting algorithm. And many times the spot counting algorithms, they were not counting the spots the way they should be counted. So here is an example of fluorospot, but it's applicable to ELISpot as well. So here, for instance, you have a very high intensity spots, and in this case, the competitive reader counted this very high intensity spot 3 times, when it should only count it one time. And then we had cases where the spots were not counted because they were of too low intensity. And then where spot centers were misplaced, so they were placed outside the spot instead of being placed over here at the center of the spot. And this last case is specifically like it has a high impact when you're reading fluorospot plates, because there could be the case that you are detecting a spot center over here in the green filter, but the same cell is also producing the red color, for instance, or another cytokine detected in the red color. So then when you're overlapping this, then you would have like a mismatch between the spot centers, and then you have the risk of not categorizing your cells in the right way. So it could be that you want here to, when you're merging this with the red filter, you want the information to say that you had one cell sitting at one location producing two cytokines. But if you have misplacements like this, it could be the case that you have the incorrect data categorization, that the data is saying that you had two cells sitting next to each other, one secreting the green substrate or secreting the green cytokine and one secreting the red one. So this type of data collection, in short, contributes to wrong data analysis. What you're going to analyze is not going to be correct. So what Mabtech did was to collaborate with mathematicians at the Royal Institute of Technology in Sweden, and also with the engineering company Camcom. And then we created a software which is dependent on like very, very advanced mathematics, leading to that we are very good at setting the spot centers and identifying where you have different spots in an image. And this applies to both Mabtech Iris and to Mabtech ASTOR. And in short, it basically means that we are performing simulated modeling of the entire process. So we can backtrack where the cell started to secrete cytokine and the entire diffusion process of the cytokines being released from the cells. And then that allows us to go back and backtrack the origin of the secretion. So it's advanced mathematics, while this is a more simpler way of performing image analysis. So what this leads to, this type of technology, is that we also, except from setting very centered spot centers like this, we can also retrieve another type of data, which we call relative spot volume. So it's basically a volume value, which will allow you to compare the secretion levels between spots detected like this. So I can go into a spot here with a higher intensity, and then I get the volume value, and then I can compare it to a more faint spot and compare the relative secreted amount between these two spots. So then I can say that more than 10 times more of the cytokine was produced over here compared to here. So this is something we will take a look at tomorrow, or on Monday as well, when going through the software. You will notice when you start to work with the equipment and the software after the training on Monday that it's very user-friendly. Many of our customers that have run competitive equipment before, they are very used to quite comprehensive and time-consuming calibration processes. It's not intuitive in that kind of systems how you should work with the programs and so on. So what we have done here is to basically revolutionize the way of working in a software with this type of analysis. So it's a nice way of working in the system, and it looks nice, and it's easy and quick to do the different actions that you want to do. So I'm sure that after the training on Monday, you will feel quite comfortable working with the software and how to change different settings and use different features and etc. Something else that is a unique selling point is that we have something called a self-calibrating XY table. So this is connected to the thing that I mentioned about calibration. Often customers are used to calibrate readers before they start reading the plate, meaning that they need to calibrate the sort of the table that the plate is placed upon and ensure that the wells are aligning under the camera. So then they need to do that every time that they are going to read a new plate. And that is very time consuming and it's not fun work to do. So what we have done is that we have created this pre-prepared essay principles. So you notice when you double clicked on MSIP Clear before you read the plate, then you came into the plate view and the only thing that you had to do was to click on read and collect the information right away. So you can compare that to having to calibrate the table and everything before you start reading. So you select basically based on plate type, what kind of plate you're reading, and then the table here is programmed to know exactly how to align the well under the camera sensor. So no user calibration is required before you start reading plates. And this applies to both Maptec Iris and to Maptec ASTOR, of course. Something else that applies to both Maptec Iris and ASTOR is that we are working with a fixed camera focus. So we are basically not allowing the user to change the camera focus or the position of the camera. And if we look at this graph, it sort of explains why that is the case. So you can see here that in red, we have a competitive system, so another type of reader, and that reader allows the user to calibrate the camera and change the camera focus. So in this study, one of our customer asked the different users of different experience to read the same plate and collect spot forming units and data from the reader system. And then first they did it with the competitive system, and here they were allowed to change the camera focus and find the best possible settings based on their subjective opinion. And then you can see that the different users collected different information. So they read the exact same plate, but they got different results. And this is this is not good in the research world, because then you want to ensure that you have a consistency in the data collection, that everyone in your lab is collecting information in the same way, using the same settings and so on. So when you're compiling your study, you don't have the bias of different settings being used because you have different users and etc. So then we can see the data collected by Maptec Iris in green. And since we are working with a fixed camera focus, the user is like blocked from fiddling around with the camera focus or changing it. So the consequence of that is that different users, regardless of user experience, can collect the same data. So you can have different users working with equipment, and they are always going to collect the same information from reading the plate. So that ensures objectiveness and a reproducibility in the way that you're collecting the data. Something else that applies to both Iris and ASTOR is that we have seen that because we're using an algorithm that is very good in setting the spot centers and separating spot centers, then we have seen that if we take a well and we add more and more cells into that well, we can also see that there is a linear relationship with the number of spots that we are counting with the machine. So the material that you put in is like linear to the results that you're getting out. And for both Iris and Astor, we have compared this to competitive readers, and then we see that they are reaching a threshold at an earlier stage. So they after a certain time point, they cannot add more and more material because everything is going to be saturated. So it doesn't matter if they add more material, that they are not going to be able to count more spots, basically. And this applies to both Iris and Astor, where we have performed studies like this with detection up to here is 2000, but in another study we have also done it up to 3000 for Iris, and here you can see up to 3000 for Astor. After 3000 spots, then you're starting to reach sort of a point where it's so many cells that everything is just going to be a smear. So then it's difficult to know really. But yeah, it depends a little bit also on the cytokine profile and what kind of detection you're doing. So yeah, this is just to show that Astor and Iris are very similar. So you're detecting one cytokine only with Astor, of course, but with Iris it's possible to have detection of up to 15 different subpopulations. So meaning if you use all those 4 different fluorophores that are used to detect 4 different cytokines, they can be in different combinations, of course. They can be detected in the single form, or they can be detected dually together with another color, or triple color, or quadruple color, and so on. So that's why you can detect more populations. Then we have slightly different cameras in the machines, but they are performing similarly. We are using a desktop system. The reading speed is the same, and everything else is pretty much the same. So the only difference is really how many cytokines you can detect with the equipment, and that you can run fluorospot assays with Mabtec Iris. So the good thing about both systems really are that they are fast, and that is something that I think you should really push for when it comes to ASTOR. That ASTOR is a very fast system. You're inserting the plate, and within 3 minutes you have performed the readout and saved the data of that plate. So that gives you more time for a coffee break, which we call fika in Swedish. This is really the ambition with our readers, that it should be simple systems. It should save the customer a lot of time when it comes to calibrations and other time-consuming processes. So it's going to be a time saver, and it's important, yeah, that you understand that you can trust the data that is acquired by both ASTOR and by Iris. So low user bias and high objectiveness, basically. And if you want to learn more before the training on Monday, I can recommend that you visit our website. Here we have one page that is dedicated to Iris and one page dedicated to Astor. Of course, you have my email, you have Xun's email, and you have Arvin's email. So if you have any questions, we will answer them in an email. You could also send emails to like iris@mabtec.com or astor@mabtec.com. So that are like common email inboxes used for the sales support, but also for tech support and so on. So feel free to send an email to that address as well. And then if you go to YouTube, then you actually have quite a lot or a few YouTube tutorials. So this is actually a 40 minutes long Maptech Iris software training video where my colleague Christian is going through, all the different features that you can use in the Maptech Apex software, and this applies to Maptech ASTOR too, because the same software is used in both reader equipments. This video was made on the Mac platform, and today we're working on the PC platform. But in many cases the functions are like located in the same place, so it's not bad to have a look at that. And on Monday you're gonna get the training from me, and that is also gonna be recorded, so then you can go back to that recording and watch one of the software features that we are explaining. And here is also one video dedicated to Maptech ASTOR, and that's like a walkthrough on how to create pivot tables in the Excel generated by Maptech Apex. So this could be good for slightly more advanced users that quickly want to organize the data that they have collected from maybe one or several plates. So it's a nice feature in the Excel where you can use different kind of customized fields to create your own pivot table. So this is something that I'm going to show you briefly on Monday as well. And apart from that, that was actually the more product related presentation. So do you have any questions about the product at this stage? I know there's a lot of like new information and you don't have to know everything by heart right now, but is there anything that you would like to ask?
We don't have anything to add. So
Great. So then that was actually it for today, because I think 2 hours is enough for this first day, and then we're gonna continue on Monday. So Arvin is gonna go through the data that you shared with us and then provide you with the information related to that. And then we will continue with the software training on Monday morning. And then when everything is completed, then you will get the recordings and so that you have them.
yeah. So how could we get the video that recorded today?
I am gonna upload it to your Reader Club where you uploaded the plate data folder. So there's another in that menu on the Reader Club. There's another tab called an option called Iris project files. So above upload files, there's like something called Iris project files. And so you would have to go there, and that's where you will find the recording for download.
Okay, thank you.
Great. And the username and the password to your Reader Club account is also in the installation protocol that we sent to you.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Anything else that you want to add soon before we log off today?
I think that's all.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah. We don't have anything to ask yet.
Okay. Great. Yeah, then I wish you a nice evening, everyone.
Yeah.
And we'll
thank
meet
you
up.
guys for
Yeah.
training today.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, PCE side. Yeah.
Have a
Bye
nice
bye.
day.
We keep in touch.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.